any second now. You never know. Are we good? Okay. We are live. Hello, everyone. I am Richard Millett. And this is the quarantine stream, the 41st one. Now we will hear the ever gorgeous, ever beautiful, ever lovely, evergreen quarantine stream theme. So true. All right. This is from the new book. The new book, by the way, is called Apples and Ice Swimming Together in Soapy Water. It is available, if you go to fluxlifeinc.com, go to books, you will see it listed among all of my other books. Everything is available for free. It's very easy to find. So this is called Dance the Night Away. A blue wave sprayed gently onto the window. It remained an unfaded crescent reaching over the rooftop. Birds flew through untethered. Droplets yawned in sonorous applause. The shape succumbed, giving way by matching passing movements, as when water splashes in the sky. A maypole stands unraveled, while a sunfish kisses a butterfly. The fences were then a canvas, soaked tissue paper sprung over electrical wires, fragile forktails freshly shaven, as bronze tiger beetles glanced up at the heavens. Dance the night away! Now we haven't done these in a while. It's pretty exciting. We're going to do a couple from a book I did in I put out in 2018. The book is called Outsider Envy. And I run these two together. So the first one, of course, is One Possible Ending. The other is Passing for White. Morning started with the Lord Mayor looking through my garbage, then running down an alleyway, guardsmen lining the fire escapes. I was at the airport, selling luggage and pleasantries. A 20-year-old let me finish his breakfast in exchange for a letter from his university. With so many people watching slow-motion explosions, I've started turning my sights towards unfiltered colors and unretouched images. The unwalked world where cures for disease sleep unnoticed in Brazilian trees is a word problem that I can't solve. While so many people are watching slow-motion explosions, I've started adjusting to diagrams, drafting tools, and handmade copper crowns. There are already enough code breakers for the next Cold War, more feathered hats and white suits in the lobbies of the finest luxury hotels that Europe has to offer, more handcrafted sports cars to speed along the smoothest roads man has ever known, more than enough gold to flake into steaming broth with sumptuously verdant acres of dollar crime. You've used it before, posting signs pointing to the closest church. He needs an infusion and this coffee is cold. He stayed up all night to see himself dancing on television. The church is closed to be reopened by the mayor's cousin in construction. The glistening grocery store, the tavern with daily fashion shows. He set up a conference call and he's trustworthy because he looks like me. The hotel with large chunks of missing bricks, the police station next to the building with a sign pasted in the front window that says all law firm, the truck enforcement officer standing in the oncoming lane with his arms outstretched in ecstasy, overseen by a smiling baby who somehow is able to say, I could smile 12 weeks from conception. I show my hand. I know. I always show my hand. Meanwhile, it's 7:05 a.m. 2 cars, 3 spaces apart in the White Castle parking lot. One man each gets out. On the left, he's wearing jeans and a flannel shirt and a cowboy hat. On the right, a charcoal gray business suit. They walk in a V-shaped meet at the door with a handshake. Then a heated conversation. The corners of the cowboy's mouth start to bubble and foam as she's wobbling down the sidewalk. Her skin-tight clothes somehow hang off of her, and she's watched by a man in a tracksuit holding a cell phone to his ear in silence. 20 feet away, the party crew pulls a U-turn as she's Lance Romance throws 20s at the guys waving away fruit flies, then shows his people why this is the finest fire extinguisher you'll ever find. The party crew spots the car wash and they get in line. They watch the jets bubble and foam, pretend they're superheroes with unlimited powers to make bubbles and foam. The Randolph Industries deployed What's my future SDI ceiling Xuka Dina Elever Circus Generator Rebdubno Selina Pak Start Bubba Dinner Me Off. Watch a bubble and foam, frozen in place. The beer cans, hair extensions, pubic hair, bondage wear, eagle eyes, white fumes, flying fingers, tops and bottoms, Midley Kingdom, gamblers of choice. I am in a flood zone. Remanai Durfina Zinas Durfana my I am in a flood zone. Watch the bubble and foam, where form follows steam, bourbon follows cream, bubble and foam over the safety warning. The crude delights that set one's sweat glands reeling with a shark tooth covered in pudding. The owner urges everyone to look out the window at the condo, tow truck, victim, night, restaurant, uniform, camera, newspaper, bank, park, yar, car, new restaurant, as if he's got some psychic powers. He was taught the meaning of versatility, respect for the law, trust for fistfights, and an arid humor that snorts debris when under the advisement of enforced idleness. This is from 2006. I'm gonna be political for a minute, because now we can talk about this in a way that is perhaps not as charged. I've said this before; it's not that controversial. This is from a book I did in 2006. It's called The Aluminum Farm, and it was about if there was actually fascism in America, like what that would really look like. I remember during the Obama years, people really thought that, even leading up to the Obama years, pre-Teabagger, there were people who really thought that, they were going to come for their guns. And I always used to say, like, Obama would just roll tanks through fucking, like, long before that would happen. Obama was very hawkish. And, none of those people were ever going to do fucking anything. And when they finally did do something, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't fucking much. I contend that Donald Trump was never a fascist because Donald Trump never believed in anything. Fascism is ultimately an ideology that has some concept to it, whether you agree with it or not. And he was never that. He was just a rich bastard who got validated for being a rich bastard. Nothing more, nothing less. There was a wonderful quote that I heard, and I don't know who said it. I would attribute it otherwise. They said that the left wanted him to be Hitler, the right wanted him to be Caesar, but instead he was just nothing more than a Kardashian. And I think that's pretty accurate. Anyway, I wrote a book about this subject long before the conversation or even possibility of it ever happened. And I certainly don't like that because it has shades of a prophecy, which I did not want, of course. Anyway, this is called Speeding into a Red Light. This is about, if some ding dong in, Wilmette decided to get serious. So they don't know about my addictions. They shouldn't speak as if they do. I get sick without their opinions. I feel great relief when they provide valid, contradictory proof. I keep my feet straight. Then came the fish. I pledge my own devotion of abstinence. The titanium is parallel, like my mind to the lathe. My heart is a piston. My feet and tongue triggers. My will is a safe. Underneath 20 feet of cement and railroad track, what has your contribution been? Ow, ow, ow! Don't disrupt my headset. Don't distract me with lights. I want action and motion, not your plans. I defeat these shrugging cretins. I accept what is certain. Out tonight, only dealing in facts, eliminating any glacial pace on my path. The cocked gun on my lap is a reminder to me to keep my perspective when looking for beauty in the land of the free. Holy smokes, that tower went up quick. Well, there's no time to check if anyone is trapped inside of it. I have to clear this fucking area pronto or they won't let me stay at the hotel tonight. And I'll have to sleep outside. Fuck that. I ain't no new recruit. You and I in black, sloshing through the lake, underneath the forest preserve, trickling up our legs. They don't know what we do. Private joy in a quiet moment, drinking Pepsi in my tent, the moonlight on your cylinders, and I in dark green lets me know what a wonderful world it can be. I'm first! Out! 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 Now! Me! I'm first! And this is from the new book. This is called Transformacion. And Transformacion is I will explain, is a catchphrase from a children's television show that I've only seen like part of one episode of. And the parents of a kid who watches the show that I know, I said, oh yeah, I wrote a poem called Transformacion. It's their kid's favorite show. And they thought that I had based it on the show, like I had watched more episodes and researched it. It was like, no, I just took the phrase and wrote the rest of my own piece around it. So this has absolutely nothing to do with the show at all. I think the show is called Super Wings, but don't hold me to that. I just wanted to take it and run with it, as I do. So this is called Transformacion. The gull-winged, gold-leaf ivory elevator doors open to reveal a portrait of an orchard, saying, "This wicker basket contains every memory you've ever had, so if you've got a purple number, come over, pull out a slip, and start to reminisce." Me and my sister playing parlor tricks in the back seat while Dad turns up the radio to drown us out. Then he leads down, increasing speed on the way to the dog show. Come over, and pull out another favorite. Semi-finalist in the quarterfinals of our school district's annual spelling bee, and I got here on an easy word. Charisma. Afterward, we went out for ice cream cake, even though my mom wanted bagels. We let her hold the trophy as a consolation prize. Transformacion! The baby blue lagoon gull wing elevator doors open to a balloon crooning in a soprano profundo. Today, you're in a classroom sitting between a magic wand and a sprinkler, behind a rhinoceros and in front of a stethoscope, ready to make toothpaste out of erasers, lipstick, and hairspray. Today, you're in a classroom and your substitute teacher is Adeline, a 102-year-old oak tree, and you're making birthday presents for her best friend. You're ready to make nylons out of eyeliner and passport pages filled with stamps and heart-shaped signatures. Transformacion! The pleated red vinyl elevator door opens to reveal a singing taxi. Today it's your birthday and you get breakfast in bed served on a star-shaped black and white television set, blinking lights on the pillow heads, milk on a blue and white dress. Today it's your birthday and you get a pink and blue book with blank pages to fill in with drawings of budgies and juice boxes, rainbows over razors, crisp bubblegum in between mint baseball cards. The gull-winged gold leaf ivory elevator doors open to reveal a portrait of an orchard transplanted to a beach. Today, you're taking a surfboard out of a small bus while watching a girl pick up a wallet that fell out of her purse. While your head is plate glass, your arms are oars, and your hands are rafts. Today, you're making videos on the boardwalk of people roller skating while holding umbrellas or eating ice cream off towels while your mouth is a string swimming in circles while daylight is young, and they intend to dream of visiting Plyan full of pleasant flang tones rhyming ever tinnily so and wrangly in something misheard and turned into a quiet joke among monks, and either brethering ein fell. And this is another new one. This is called Windy Sequins. Through the missing bricks, you can see a banquet table with a candelabra crooked from water-falling wax. On the other side of the missing bricks is a tablecloth with faintly gray claw stains left by mourning doves. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table heaving with indentations from apples, persimmons, cantaloupes, and pears. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a deer walking in the distance while a finger painting floats to the ground. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table with unopened telegrams and sturdy silver trays stacked with books about the Enlightenment. On the other side of the missing bricks, there is a pebble garden placed on a tree branch next to a mortar and pestle. Through the missing bricks, there is a banquet table lined along the bottom right edge with bowls of cold dandelion soup. Seated 45 degrees away from the banquet table is a man with a salt and pepper wax mustache humming waltzes and complaining about the distortions of sounds and colors. 110 years old, and he doesn't know that electric blue can be beautiful too. Mm. How are we doing out there? This is from a book I did in 2019. It's called Citizenship. And the piece is called I'm Dancing with the Skeleton Key. I'm dancing with the skeleton key pinned under my belt the night after I'd had two simultaneous dreams in ocular split screen, one where a white-tailed fawn galloped to the front door and another where my brother couldn't sleep. I'm dancing with the skeleton key tied on a twine cord around my neck, remembering when my sister was locked in a minivan and stranded in a parking lot outside of Austin. She kissed the windows and ate the tape left in the cassette deck. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in my unopened mouth, tucked behind my wisdom teeth and obscured by my tongue. I have memories that my sister still won't believe, and I wish I could have edited the 20th century. It all could have been done so much better. I'm dancing with the skeleton key scotch taped to my arm. When I was in school, the vice principal gave himself a heart condition trying to figure out who had stolen from the convenience store and then boasted about it on the blackboard. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in the grotto of a dilapidated Catholic church, where the priest once confessed to me that after each funeral he performed, the only way he could raise his spirits was by making uneasy music with the organist. I'm dancing with the skeleton key concealed in an alley while bells chime at midnight near the railroad and kids with no curfew dodge between dashing headlights on their way to play hide and seek in the park. I'm dancing with the skeleton key laid on the floor of a garage while my brother draws out diagrams on poster boards connecting lines from consequences of thought to isolated islands of thinking divided by unintended regressions of actions. I'm dancing with the skeleton key while I am safe at home looking at sealed bags of clothes that I stopped wearing years ago while I was running for mayor on an unconfirmed platform of leaking information about the governor. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in the adjacent office because the evidence my brother uncovered just got delivered to the lawyer and he predicts that it will make the judge jump and remove any condemnation from his mouth. I'm dancing with the skeleton key in a strip mall that used to be a swimming pool and before that a man-made hill that covered demilitarized waste trucked over from a Floridian base, and it will still take 100,000 years before any of this reaches its half-life. I'm dancing with the skeleton key clasped tightly in my hand as I watch my sister in the mirror speaking sentences using only one word and plant orchids next to power lines in the backyard. Then she dots the driveway with empty jars to accurately measure the rainfall. I'm dancing with the skeleton key, my pocket moving loosely with me. My brother used to cry bitterly to our parents every time he got a ticket, refuting each offense, denying that he had done any of it. I'm dancing with the skeleton key sliding uncomfortably in my shoe, but the nuisance helps give me the presence of mind to always hold up what I was taught, that when the rent is due, it's better to be full and well slept than to just hand over a blank check. I'm dancing with the skeleton key pressed into a book, watching leaves in the wind and a novelist at a press conference performing fake sign language, hoping it will get him the attention he wants for trying to revive the printed word. Excuse me. How are we doing out there? Doing good? Beautiful. Any requests? This is this is from a book I did 8 years ago, and the book is called "This Is What Freedom Looks Like," and it was somebody asked me once, "Well, why did you call it that?" And I said, "Because," pointing to the book, "this is what freedom looks like." Ha ha ha. Anyway, people have confused this piece over the years with all sorts of things, and people have had all sorts of weird interpretations of it. But I'll tell you this: though I wrote it 8 years ago, I think ultimately what it's about is, or who it's dedicated to, I suppose, is that lunatic with the horns and the face paint and refusing to eat anything other than organic food in prison. I think he's kind of the ultimate subject of this, even though that was, many years ago. This is, of course, called Sympathy for the Cowboy. Sympathy for the Cowboy. All alone on the range, after the war ended, he was forced to change his name. Sympathy for the cowboy holding his dying brother, who begged with his last breath, "Tell mother I died with honor." Sympathy for the meth lab and all who fight in harm's way, who hope to abolish minimum wage and charge only $15 a day. Sympathy for modern times and those who argue that they're right. Sympathy for the victim who already has all the laws on their side. Sympathy for the student who's only lived in theory and a hammer and sickle t-shirt walking away from the barricade. Sympathy for the lawsuit and all who fought for reform. Sympathy for the bumper sticker telling you to be reborn. Sympathy for the stallion running free and too wild to ride. Sympathy for the motherfucker who tried, his wife cried, in his foolish pride. Sympathy for the strawberry and the trial separations, press releases pleading for privacy, and of course doing it for the kids. Sympathy for the nihilist, sucking on his cigarette, cutting you off in traffic with no constraints of guilt or regret. Sympathy for the stalker, on his computer outside, looking at pictures of you in high school, saving each one, even if it takes them all night. Sympathy for the cowboy, whose son moved off the ranch, said he might be coming back soon, if there's no change of plans. This is Sacrifice the Satellite. Moments before dawn, phone ringing, unable to suss if it was happening from impressions born in shallow sleep while lights flicked on in neighbors' windows. Or as the drift seized me back in, we were gun runners trapped in a house, detained by police, threatened by rivals, but I was able to slither out a side door and snuck away to a cafe where I was supposed to summon assistance, but decided instead, the hell with them. I was called to a room. The walls of the hallway were blue, and when I entered, there they sat, looking exactly as they did in 1984. When one spoke, there was no sound from their mouths, but the words singed loudly in my skull. Crushed flowers float downstream in the rainwater, and handmade smokestacks drip steam on half-awake blades of grass. New nuns count the gray hairs of their predecessors since they scan old photographs. Will they question who's alive in heaven? Are their words papering a mountain? They will have a moment where they behold the beauty of an empty screen or unplowed, snow-covered street. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. Thick, shimmering splotches of gray grease liquefy and start to drip down rust-colored walls of skins, watched by a babe with a flashbulb embedded in their wrist, who sits on gouged black and gold tiles in the center of a disused ballroom dance floor, among carelessly flung piles of metal-pronged monitors, cords, discs, spilled coffee grounds, broken vodka bottles, and asymmetrical platinum wigs. Every year there's a whisper the inventory will get a clean transfer. Winston Dubois knew the recovered money was wrapped in a mosquito net and secured in the back of a carriage. The horse stopped in front of an Air Force base, which got inadvertently captured on videotape, with the footage dissected by theorists for decades. Desmond Hampton learned Tony Chamberlain had double-crossed him as he drank milk and clapped erasers together outside his classroom. His signature had been forged and hidden throughout the system. The younger best brother thinks, if only I were a CEO buying companies whose names I don't know and could leverage my credibility to simultaneously flaunt my status and champion myself as an obscurity, while the older best brother thinks, if only I were an oligarch and had a tapestry of machinery to do what I want, live in seclusion, invest in rare art, and pay for a hooker who looks like my daughter. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. The beams of starshine light land everywhere and leave valley-wide fingerprints for 7 years. Minute glass tubes can shiver without bursting squid ink on glistening diamonds laid out on linens, spirals scrawled on maps with the location leading inside a puzzle box, while fungus slides up to a microscope and mixes with vinegar and bleach. Circles of sapphires line the linoleum tile with a surface so improbably clear that it mimics a screen. Lost in a world between are the souls who only dream when looking up. This is about. This is called "Would You Sell the Relics?" It's about abuse of power. It is under the guise of being about the military-industrial complex, but it's not actually about the military-industrial complex. For you see, this uses one form of abuse of power, or one system of abuse of power, to discuss other systems of abuse of power. The general that only cares about tomorrow also expects everyone to echo the same expression, and when the general can no longer see the power of their influence, they try and exert control over any small circumstance under their command. While the brigadier general worries to no one if they need a transfusion, the colonel, who's concerned that not enough people's fingerprints matches theirs, requires a warning on the front page of each report, along with a summary cut together by a subordinate in a matter of minutes so they don't have to waste any energy generating any contradictory thoughts. While the captain enters their coordinates so their location is known and updated every moment, which leaves the captain free to make discoveries like the wheel or gravity, then sell their findings to the executives or campaign staff of their choice, urged by a strong sense of benevolence, a tribute to charity as a force. And the first lieutenant's unmatched love of history is proven by the pictures taken of their parents with Goebbels in Brazil in the 70s. And the second lieutenant's jealousy shows and grouses to one, "That's not Goebbels, it's clear it's Martin Bormann." The sergeant major that reset the standards of esprit de corps doesn't know the panic they'll feel a few short years later when they are urged out of the way, or that they'll become stiff with resentment and resolute in their calls for punishment and institute measures to monitor how the company behaves. While the staff sergeant writes on a photo of themselves, "The future points to you," and daydreams about collecting the remaining virginities from the sorority house down the road, and they already have the names, ages, and weights in a frequently updated database. Then the staff sergeant complains about commercials before content. The chief warrant officer who breaks ranks to research the order the alphabet was created in gets rueful about seeing themselves age and attending charity events, funerals, and hospital visits, seeing their face in the mirror more washed out than before, wondering as they write their commencement address who will even be paying attention in the audience, drinking from puddles, seeing what the sky says, not being able to read handwriting. And to the private, it's all an eye roll, and all so boring and shallow. To see another round of legacy shut out by an offhand remark, the private doesn't ask any of the officers where they should start. What's the matter where rebellion is kitsch and trauma is Walmart? The specialist greets the private. They each think the other is a dilettante. And later, the specialist considers, what's the matter where you have 1,000 followers and not a dozen supporters? Would you sell the relics? Right along those same lines, this is cruelty-free heroin. Actually, I will say this before I read cruelty-free heroin. I remember back after 9/11, and there was so prior back, like when I was growing up in the 80s, the American flag was only supposed to be an American flag. You couldn't do anything with it. Like, if even if you had like a jacket, that was kind of just being disrespectful to the flag. And that was when all the flag burning controversy was going on. So anyway, all of a sudden 9/11 happens, and like the American flag is on everything, and no one seemed to question it. And the cultural taboo of using the American flag as anything other than a flag went out the window. And the MC5, if you're familiar with the MC5, used to have the American flag painted on their guitars, on their clothes. This is back in the late 60s. And their milieu was that they were countercultural radicals. And so there was some ridiculous VH1 thing of they were like the best rock bands or something, and they had Ted Nugent talking about the MC5, and they're showing kind of decontextualized footage of the MC5 of them dancing like around on stage in American flag gear, and it's Ted Nugent talking about them, and it gives the impression that the MC5 would be au fait with Ted Nugent's way of thinking, which they, of course, would not be. And it was interesting to see that imagery get decontextualized. And that happened a lot through the 2000s. That happened a lot. And there was this whole thing of like, oh, well, the 60s or 70s stuff, or even the punk movement, that was never political. That there was never anything to any of that. And you watch things get decontextualized, and you start to realize, and that that's a very dangerous thing to do. And things get decontextualized all the time now, and it's still very dangerous. It just took me until my mid-20s to figure out that that was something that happened. With that in mind, this is cruelty-free heroin. When the Guardian goes mad, the sun rains against their eardrums, indistinguishable from Morse code tapping on a copper plate. Yes, when the Guardian has gone mad, they're found singing love songs to tanks, draping staircases and flags, breaking car windows to decorate their faces with the glass. When the Guardian goes mad, they're captured pushing a pickaxe into an LED screen and detained for threatening to throw snakes at gas station attendants. When the Guardian goes mad, people suddenly remember to turn on AM radio and patiently follow guidelines before filing a full report, though there are always doubters and passers-by who start conspiracies, the usual being that this was a planned distraction or a series of false flags. If the Guardian goes mad, they'll arrive at every awards ceremony with a ribbon in hand and a mirror under their chin and make demands to review the voting processes when they don't win. If the Guardian goes mad, they'll rue the day they lost control of their relationships, spending weeks hiring staff to bury paperwork they'll insist doesn't exist. If the Guardian goes mad, all their meals shall consist of orange peels pulled from chain link fences and burned coffee flavored with molded peach preserves, though there are always doubters ready to offer an opinion of unverifiable proof summarizing that death and maps are the only real measures of impact. Can you imagine being that fucking sick? If the Guardian cracks up, they'll spend bleak days envisioning trees committing suicide, grandmothers doing crystal meth for the first time, and gnats smeared into toothpaste. If the Guardian cracks up, 7 strangers stuck in a bank will claw at each other to seek cold air on the vault and wait for their families and firemen to arrive and dig them out. If the Guardian cracks up, pirates will walk their own planks and devour themselves once they hit the water, thrashing back at their gnashing teeth, running the seas red until hunter and prey are finally won. Ignorance! Arrogance! The pest control man said unto me, when I was in Japan, I bought cherry bread in a can. I opened it with a knife and slid off the wrapper. The air bubbles stayed floating in my mouth, and I rolled them around and around and around and around until I returned back to the West. Bliss tolerance? The pest control man said unto me, sometimes my apartment building turns into a vending machine, and I get deposited out into the evening to provide goods and services for lucky couples with good taste and a few wandering dollars to rub together. This is called Horse. Let's share the silence while everyone's absent, with the electricity out. It's unknown if the edges can be seen. Thin line. Take your clothes off and find out if you're purple. Supine, time to get reserved by disengaged, dreary people. I'm optimistic enough to whisper in your ear, vanish into the walls, and watch you walk to the chair. Let's share the silence, test the power of my stare, and the limits of your willingness. Then pretend we're unaware when you stand in front of the mirror and all the stringent reasons why you're really here. I'm clear enough to stand near the back, not against your thigh, to avoid glancing at your eyes. Let's share the silence, ease into your patience, measuring what each instant takes seconds after the temperature breaks and staying anxiously awake, while the next 7 minutes are advanced into minute facets, slipping across conjoined elements. I'm open enough to adjust the embryo window, your tight spine, your consent, the tension kept sacrosanct. Sorry for the delay. It's very unprofessional. This is called May. This is from 1996. Get it together, get it yourself. The feelings you had linger for months. Under the ground, garden life albatross, she bleeds all over me. I say ball and chain in simple words. Idealization, detoxification, affiliation, menstruation, idealization, affiliation, dirt in the coffin, she's bleeding on the flower stems. Up in the air, salivating tissue. Under the ground, dirt on the nails, bleeding again. Extend a hand in loving help, but maybe you should just kill yourself. Any requests? Okay, this is called Everyone. Too late in the evening, 7:45. That man around the corner lost his ring in a fight. Here comes St. Thomas walking through the door, found himself an auction, bought everything on the floor. I don't wake up too early. I don't cut my face. I don't call any strangers. I don't look for their graves. Everyone gets half of what they want and half of what they don't. Half of what they couldn't and half of what they won't. Pork chops in the kitchen. Above the sink, there's a light. No milk on the table for the blink of an eye. Up the road is a driveway where they come out paid. Yeah, they come out smiling. Dead cats in their way. Everyone gets half of what they want and half of what they don't. Half of what they couldn't and half of what they won't. This is a newer one. This is from the new book. This is Lazy Angels. Excuse me. Squat woman sealed in a shadow frock, trimmed in white, absence of light, selling stories from her garden that she demands are heard but is greeted with the silence of the crowd's indifference. She doesn't already know that we can breathe and we can leave. She can't see that we already can walk through doors and open windows. Counterfeit prophet steals the locks. Illegal son zeros one. Selling pictures of her dinner, her guards are obliged to buy, even as her art collection is vanishing until the walls have nothing left hanging. She doesn't already understand that we can perceive, that we can receive. She can't see that we can paint flowers with any colors we can imagine. Their far and distant minds are trails best left behind. Sister to her father stops the drain under a rotting stage, 6-month wage, selling reports carefully whispered in hopes her wealthy relatives will let her sign their wills first. She doesn't already know that we are her, twice as much or more, a complete verse. She can't see the red and gold bird flying right above. She can't see that we are her, twice as much or more. She can't see that she hands her keys to a steed who gallops away into the orange rolling hills. Orange rolling hills. Orange rolling hills. And this is another new one. I like this one quite a lot. This is Investigating Mitsy. I will say this. This book took a long time to do because I kept getting interrupted. It was very frustrating because I had a very clear vision of what I wanted it to be, and life just kept interrupting me, mostly bureaucracy and from the powers that used to be. And it was very hard to concentrate. And I wrote this whole thing in maybe 30 or 40 minutes at a time where I was starting to wonder if I should just not finish the book at all. So it has, I don't know, an additional level of importance because I just somehow got into a state of concentration when I found concentrating itself to be very difficult. And I just wrote this thing out, and I couldn't have been happier with it. I was pretty amazed that I was able to do it because at the time it seemed a little bit beyond me. So this is Investigating Mitsy. She rides around the merry-go-round wearing satin slippers, chewing pink peppercorns. Her eyes are a miracle in the way they paint names in the minds of rain clouds. The lightning reaches out to introduce itself. The Queen of Atlantis draws filigree for the king while he's taking his bath. Bristling lips kiss the teeth of the keyring and lick ankles and math. She holds a bouquet of clarinets, wearing a lavender herringbone robe and nodding at buckets of soap. Her elbows hold her weight on the sand dune, decorated with still-wet seashells and teacups half-filled with a treacle she pours onto tree roots. The Queen of Atlantis plans where the French and English will meet. The king eats a suckling pig and excites the court over soaking his feet. This is another new one. You can probably tell I like reading these. I didn't want to do any of the material from this one until it was finally out. So it was, I enjoy doing these performances quite a lot. But it was hard to not do new material for so many months. So it's fun to be able to do these finally. And I can do them as often as I want. Anyway, this is 3% Profit. Waking up to the sun-soaked world in the eyes of a diamond stretching out from a full circle, I was at a recital resting on a bed of feathers and then floated to the front of the festivities. I Mercury step leap through the lake and land in a leafy soft meadow, my legs a blurring winding wheel. My mom and dad hold out boxes. They walk together to an airplane, then climb up and run across the wings. Soon it's nice and quiet for me, as we can plainly see. I tied a string around an anteater, as we can plainly see. They say it's better to have metal teeth, as we can plainly see, but I would rather bathe in butter, as we can plainly see. I nicked a little bit of a hammer and nail on my way onto the helicopter, where I knew a physics sped up my entrance. Never seen the sky be so brave and wide, or thought about the joy and watermelons. And when I carefully left the step stool and went into the underground ice tunnel, I ran across a humidifier so the motor could keep my feet warm and not get harmed by frostbite. My eyes hide behind a pregnant woman's stomach while a laser rings into my ears. I try to open a case of sewing supplies, but to my surprise, the latch is bandaged shut. I breathe yellowed air and drink bubbling water and play with friends who live in the shower. I put a cold stream of thoughts in a brown paper bag and wonder where I can tap the telephone. I freeze my face in photos so that I'm not recognized while I page through my scrapbooks. The bugs in the cracks decline my invitations to dance, so therefore they're unwanted. I hiss into the sink until they crawl back so that my party can stay filled with levity and not too much gravity, so I paste my Polaroids all over the walls in geometric patterns and steal some dinner from my next door neighbors, as it's their fault for having given me a key. My sleeves festooned with pins and wind chimes dangle and jangle, announcing my arrival. A curl in the best nest with an arm that won't do you harm, an idol vibrating on a whirring appliance, as we can plainly see. And soon I'm ready to eat, nothing moving suddenly, as we can plainly see. And even sooner still, time to sleep. Here's to a night of pleasant dreams, as we can plainly see. This is from Citizenship. This is called Canary Milk. Sweltering sun in the forecast, but it's raining right now. Retired teens nostalgic for holograms as their granddads watch rocks roll on the ground and wonder when they can be farmers in glass pods on Mars. While Amanda eats factory fresh candies and laughs jaggedly at vulgar stories. The boy who awoke in the toy aisle one evening moved more elegantly than his mother had ever seen as he picked items off a worn, well-folded list before deciding he'd rather have a pet eel instead, while Amanda watches her neighbors bickering and daydreams deleted scenes from their past. The delivery man is ready for the weekend as he ignores reports on the European heat wave, instead marveling about the new house on his route and how much it must cost each month to keep the swans fed and the water in the lagoon fresh, while Amanda feels no urgency to call back her agency and laughs at people voluntarily photographing their chores. This is oh yeah. This is a very old one. It's from 1997. It is any time now. We'll get there. It is Moonlight and a Dirty Tea Bag. I spend my time in theaters. Actually, I'll stop for a second. This was actually inspired. I went to go see, um, what was it? Train Spotting. I saw Train Spotting in the theater by myself, and it was a very sad night, and I was a very sad young man, and I went and saw this movie. It was the late show. It was like the middle of the week. There were maybe two or three other people in the theater, and I got out of there. There was like, 5 cars in the parking lot. But the movie really cheered me up, and I kind of ran out of there like in a really good mood, and it was nice. It like broke the spell, and at some point, I turned that feeling or that idea into a poem. This is called Moonlight and a Dirty Tea Bag. It's a much better introduction. I spend my time in theaters. And when I get home at night, the plasma in my blood always pounds too fast, and the broken overhead lights can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. Yeah, the night shows off your real feelings. The streets are chipped and cornered. There's a punk rock kid with black-lit spiked hair and a lonely mechanic who tries to hug his customers, or something like that. The cops always fly past, oblivious to it all. We happened to hook up by chance. She was snake dancing through some guy's shirt. Our conversation had something to do with the Renaissance, but to be honest, I can hardly remember. So we went back to her place. Her skin turned the color of a Dalmatian, and she laughed at me when I started talking too much. There were whistling monks in the corner wearing crowns of jewels, and I tried to play the straight man amongst all the cacophony. She took my hand and told me that it was all right. And when we got on board the satellite, she sang folk songs all the way to Mars. She took my hand and promised me that it was all right. And when we got on board the satellite, she sang folk songs all the way to Mars. This is another new one. This is Parallel Place. Any second now it'll be parallel. Right. I live in a parallel place where the land is level, where the streets are bright in the evenings, and I know what tomorrow brings. I live in a parallel place where the wind is cold, where gray haired men sweep the bandshell and foxes sleep under church bells. I hear the lank haired women walking in the morning, their faces shaped by the sun. I live in a parallel place where there's endless electricity with very low voltage, where everyone dies of old age. I live in a parallel place where rain runs into a tunnel, where able bodied women clear the gutters and dragonflies rise in a slow motion flutter. I see the able bodied men hauling fallen branches, their faces shaded by the sun. I live in a parallel place where people speak in peace, where the foreman's spouse greets the mailman in a see through blouse. I live in a parallel place where the forest faces east, where contracts are written in invisible ink and codes are created with a wink. I see all the people breathing through the day, their faces graced by the sun. Blissful cardinals, blissful infants, blue reflections magnified 10,000 times, blue beams bouncing off aged lenses, radiant artifacts, radiant heirlooms, white sails blistered by the salty sun, white china stacked in cupboards, shining domes, shining necklaces, green feelings balanced on a yardstick, green parchment weighted down by grapes. This is another new one. This is called Should I Go In? The silver peppermill whispers to the hammer that she's an airport. And though she never really shows anybody, I still know she's an airport. If you stop at her coffee shop, she'll charge you extra for a plastic top. The well-water ice cubes have heard this tale before, but she's an airport. A zebra's chewing gum can confirm the reports that she's an airport. If you take your shoes off after the security stops, she'll throw them in the air and they'll land in the baggage cart. Run down the runway into the center of the day where the sun is pointing to the ground. Reach all the way down to touch your shoes and remember a story you'll want to pass along someday. Run down the runway into the center of the day where the sun is pointing to the ground. Reach all the way down to your toes and remember a story you'll want to pass along someday. She's an airport and her father is a farm filled with corn stalks. Her mother is a candy factory spinning reflective baubles. She's an airport and her father is a farm filled with corn stalks. Her mother is a candy factory spinning reflective baubles. Every color candy. If I could talk to you, I will some more. And just like in today's world of opinion and denunciation and admirable like in pictures and friendliness and outward inliness, maybe I'm on the thrust of that. She dreamed she was a train draped in robin's egg lace. She couldn't keep still in one place. She dreamed she was the only train running on the 4th of July, filled with whipped cream to burst and streamers to fly. She dreamed she was a train running past the impound lot, and after every platform on the route, she'd whisper, I still love Phil. She was sad when they closed the gates at night. She dreamed she was a train filled with die-cast metal engines and cowboy hats, ordered by the civil rights worker's favorite daughter. She dreamed she was a train, her earrings flashing orange lights. She waved hello to the one car she'd stopped at the tiny suburban crossing, a train to get the tracks loose and rattling. Rattling tracks reminds her of those aunts and uncles talking over each other at her grandma's birthday, their dentures barely hanging over their gums, the clacking sounds, the annoying sucking of to try to hold the dentures in place. Her grandma's birthday. Birthday. Birthday! This is from Salt or Light. This is called Pearls. Again, any second now. Here we are. There'd been a robbery in her apartment. The dentist dabbed at the blood dripping off his drill and said, It was a lot more than I expected. They had hit Carrie's place while she slept. The cops spent the early hours asking her questions, like did she have any enemies, perhaps somebody in her family. They told her to screen her calls, implored her to invest in some security. Ultimately, however, the only items of value taken were a few pieces of jewelry. Bankers' boxes were duct taped shut and loaded in the truck, their contents filled with scrap to go and get melted down by guys who didn't care whether it came from an abandoned ironworks or was brass stolen from a Catholic school. Gregory had never thought it would come to this. The ranch was facing foreclosure. He'd gotten a wedge of glass jammed into his hand, and his girlfriend had spent $25 she didn't have on an ugly antique horseshoe she hung upside down in the doorway. I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave that you wouldn't speak any longer. I should have known when we were standing at your mother's grave, walled in a cold fog. Gregory looked down at the 4 inches of stained skin on his left forearm and thought what that symbol had meant to him when he was 18, and how gutted he felt when he noticed the girl at the bank had the same thing on her ankle. While the detective tried to focus on the negatives from the crime scene, intently scanning for details he might otherwise miss, but he was distractedly irritated by the accidental double exposures and dark splotches of silver salts on his fingertips. I used to walk much quicker and look over my shoulder. Now I no longer worry. I used to walk much quicker, but now I've been absolved of responsibility. There was a beautiful storm last night that disrupted the 90-degree heat and blocked out the 6 p.m. sun, the smell of mud running over the fresh blacktop, icy rain that came like the crest of a wave, cutting short the humidity, my clothes and hair getting drenched, the holes in the soles of my shoes letting the water soak my feet, as I walked in circles across the nearly empty lot. This is called Blue-Soaked Scepter. The kink in my neck that runs to my kidneys, distracting me from movies I've long since memorized and repeating quotations I've lived inside of, and I've no desire to rewrite history that doesn't concern me. when what I didn't know already felt familiar, when I saw the inscription on my commemorative plaque had been worn back to smooth silver. When I slipped behind the mist, changed clothes, washed my hands, and shaved, with no light and with no intention of anyone seeing my face for a while, I was willingly walked through a coal-stained city lot and deposited in the back seat of an already running windowless army green car, which was then locked from the outside. Mary! Had I abandoned my practice, committed an indirect affront in my brief absence? My name is Keith. The beggar at my door raised his arm, but soft, and I listened to his parables that had no center. My name is Luke, with an auspicious mistress beside me. I looked at a baby looking out a window at fluttering street signs. My name is Julia. My temper was gentle as I read a sermon called, "Are You Here to Celebrate the Death of Death?" My name is Giles. I wish that I'd been obscured when my ears were bitten with endearment while I was plainly ignored. My name is Grace. I was observed by 3 people whose accounts proved suggestible and fractured. My name is Abigail. I faced hard construction when I, in truth, spoke forcefully about my forged fingerprints. My name is Morgan. I spent twilight emptied, save for sketching a red tunic on bent paper. My name is Brooke. I was registered in a hotel under an assumed name and made lists of families I pitied. My name is Gabriel. I singed my hair and clothes trying to be recalled. The sky has been moonless for 29 nights. Why couldn't I stay? I was bothered by the way the streetlights hit the trees and reflected off the leaves. I took a knife and short length of rope. 6 hours later, I'm waiting for you to arrive, carrying a scepter and wearing a breastplate with frayed shoulder blades and exhausted eyes. I'm waiting for you to arrive, sitting cross-legged on the sodden deck with wayward souls who were barely seen. I leapt off the ledge and was soon out of haunt as I climbed the concave shores, wondering if I should forage, catch a gudgeon, or eat unbruised fruit that had fallen. The gravelly guttered soil gave way to encroaching forest, dense with rows of weighted, wet purple limbs that succumbed to gravity and wind. Then abruptly I was in the center of a champaign, and the only objects I found were short rows of tree stumps and stones, each carved with the query, "What made you look here?" I jaunced away into the odd even and was again pursued by the thicket's reach. The thorns licked my calves, the ant hills shone like pebbled glass. I brushed past a frog with a violet tongue and discolored teeth, who gulped for relief while his body remained static like a splayed thread in aspic. I made my way into the antres and found myself prating, "Prithee, pray tell what you remember of working your hands into the mud, feeling it curl under your fingernails." It feels like a relic reunited with its original setting after having been figured lost or only seen in a dream. Betimes I glanced around for the traveling lamp while standing beside the curvature, hearing myself call the datelessly abandoned vizards and leasing and be faithfully young-eyed. I returned once more to the champaign and sat among the stones in silence. I received no visions or visitations, no inspiration to invent an incantation. And in this vacuum of communication, I only experienced the sense or perchance suggestion of the imposing press of eras and atmosphere. And now I notice this restless weather, shy beams of sunlight moving sideways through the strings of remaining rain. This is called Party of Colors. Her eyes opened while she pretends that she can feel her own fontanelle. She thought she might be a post person or her very own cousin. She reads the news, fear of law and God and man in an infinite dynamic, infinite dynamic, infinite dynamic, infinite dynamic loop. She was one image at a time. She thought that she had to be a person, right? She wrote some news. Platitudes aren't solutions and fill space between waves. Now I'm new. And she also knew that the feeling of being new was something that she could always circle back around to. This is Honeybee 12345. Like a coral pink butterfly heading to me, you're looking through your jeweled eyes. I'm waiting for your surprise. A birthday card, an aquarium hung on the wall, a memory in a vein, swimming around, arriving late to hear a favorite song, flying, flying like a honeybee that counts the flap of its wings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keeping everything else alive. Bubbles on the honeycomb coming together in unusually warm weather. Honeybee, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keeping everything else alive. And now, this is always, all the time. Now then, the present is in the future, history is present, the future is present, the present is present, and history is history, and we see the future push to the foreground wonderfully, all three, you and me, and as a wonderful woman named Diane said, I hope our future is like flying birds, I really fucking do. The weather is in the sea, gravityless moment, caught and dotted with cherry trees and colored pencils. There is very little in life that matches what I feel when you smile at what I whisper back to you. We're in the room and out of nowhere, looking at the inlet together in letters and circles, like a slit in the curtain, like a fluttering bird ready to bathe, like an oxidized copper fountain. I want to be with you always, all the time, like a white shirt with a fresh grass stain, like a streetlight breathing air, like waving from the top of a ladder. You plan all the plans, always, all the time, like a strawberry on the counter, like fingernails washed clean, like a bee being curious of a new flower. You are adorable, always, all the time, like pickled ginger on salmon, like a workbench in the sun, like an invention imagined. We are here with each other always, all the time, like a cat cornering a grasshopper, like a lick stamp pressed with a thumb, like a rectangle with unbroken corners. You are mine, I am yours, always, all the time. And now we're gonna wrap this up with a long one. This is from the new book. This is called Rubber Buttons. Needs to be kept simmering, and the time should flow slowly and quietly. My shoelaces are undone, which means someone likes me as much as I love to see a basket of swinging snowflakes. My shoelaces are undone, so I throw them next to a trunk full of styrofoam tongues, and the person who brought them yells, "Thank you," or "Thank you." The first person in the castle has the obvious advantage if they wish to scrape their fingernails against century-old windows. We're taking a moment here. Just go with me on this. You don't mind if we're a little The first person in the castle has the obvious advantage if they wish to scrape their fingernails against century-old windows. They can concentrate vacantly while being unfailingly polite, insisting their hands are made of the same sand as found outside on the beach. They know there is no joy in failure for their friends, and that the fun in restoration happens once the work is done. The second person in the castle has obvious ease with boldly seizing treasure, only they can see through a fizzing camera lens. They can research quietly while having no qualms about their ambition outstripping their abilities in assessing gaudy antiques. They know there is no lemon rich enough in sourness to let their tastes get challenged into swallowing insects in soiled tents. The third person in the castle has the obvious edge when turning their profile to face the east in hopes of repairing a table leg. They can dutifully saw and sweep the dust into the bin until the bell sounds for them to begin slicing vegetables in the kitchen. They know there is no creek deep enough to keep them from molding jellies into a series of perfectly semi-translucent wedges. I want brass buttons for my cousins. Because I could not count for cufflinks, they counted for me. Because I could not look for light bulbs, they looked for me. Because I could not dance for diamonds, they danced for me. They realized the chateau has the clear advantage as a place to evaluate flashy antiques. I want brass buttons for my cousin, but I make rubber buttons to wear for myself. While I sew, I look at the library and remember each of my most memorable finds. I want brass buttons for my cousin, but I make the rubber buttons I wear on my jacket. I buy the materials from the tan-toothed man who sold my mom a gold wishing box. I want brass buttons for my cousin because when I preach with the collar, it preaches with me. I want brass buttons for my cousin because when I move with the minnows, they move with me. They realize the chateau has the clear advantage when you're evaluating flashy antiques. My shoelaces are undone, so I only walk sideways and photograph a plum purple terracotta planter with a flag with a price tag sticking out of it. Oh, it's hard to know. My shoelaces are undone, which means someone likes me as much as I love wearing an apricot ascot while hearing stories about Korean camping sites. The first person in the tower can brighten their senses by energetically exchanging sunglasses and hairstyles, once safely ensconced at the top. They can cheerfully sing along with anything, though they prefer Caruso and ragtime to songs they don't know. There is usually a fixed point in the distance for them to focus on things such as a helicopter or hawk taking off shortly after dawn. The second person in the tower can loudly shout, "How I love my girl!" which echoes back so overwhelmingly they can think that they're in a private booth. They can detect the scent of her shampoo in the wind and look down to see her looking up and running towards them. There is normally an iron staircase nailed in 40 years ago, which serves as the one modern addition to the edifice. The third person in the tower can tell endless jokes over dinner about the rabbits they saw nipping chocolate from their mother's open purses. They can wear a lei around their necks, which contrasts sharply with their pinstripe sport coat and tartan flat cap. There is always a sauna where they can fall asleep underneath a slippery painting of their father all dressed up as a captain. My shoelaces are undone. They lay underneath the warmth of the sun. This is a true depiction, recited with excellent diction. And now I recall other memories. From walking around the castle, the humidity kept at bay, the clouds letting loose only hints of rain, and vines intertwining across each other, and each new flower that blooms, another gift for the dozens of bees in love with the newness of June. It's all on top of my eyes, the curious sage in an orange and brown dashiki, standing before a stripped statue of Christ, arms open and hovering, all on top of my eyes, lithium batteries in between her teeth. She holds a screwdriver dipped in green paint as she walks over underground cables, all on top of my eyes, in between her toes. She staves off headaches and with gallons of water and sleeping when she can, all on top of my eyes. The swells of excitement are just one continued drone, close concert of ideas, stretching fingers. You did a great job today. Seriously, all on top of my eyes. One wonder, one today. And that, folks, is another exciting edition of the quarantine stream. Ah! Quiet, you. We hope that you've enjoyed this. By the grace of God, we will. By the grace of God, we will be back next week. We will return with a vengeance next week. Until then, as always, I say, stay safe. Double mask. Huh? Stay smart. Develop a sentient conscience to understand the work. The work as in the long con. Stay smart and stay free. Because, and I say this with all sincerity, you already are. Yes. Now we will hear the quarantine stream theme yet again. Wonderful. All right, everybody. God bless. Like I said, hopefully we will be back next week. And like I said, just hang in there. God bless. Thank you for watching. Good night. Bye.